So you want to own a concert hall, not a bar with a stage in the corner, not a community theater that hosts the local jazz trio on alternating Thursdays, a real venue, the kind where the sound system alone costs more than your house, where thousands of people file through the doors every single night someone famous is in town, arms full of overpriced drinks, ears already ringing from the opener. You picture the marquee with your name on it, the private green room where artists thank you personally before the encore, the backstage pass that gets you anywhere in the building you own. Here is the strange part. Almost none of the money you are picturing actually belongs to you. The ticket revenue, the service fees, the beer sold at $18 a cup, most of it flows through your fingers before you ever close them. And yet the company that quietly controls nearly every major venue on the continent keeps reporting record revenue year after year through a pandemic and an antitrust trial and a federal jury finding them liable. That is not bad luck. That is the business model. And once you understand how it actually works, you will never look at a concert ticket the same way again. Let us put a number on the building, because the building is the first thing you pay for and the last thing that pays you back. A modern mid-sized concert venue, say 5,000 seats, decent acoustics, the kind of loading dock that can handle 3 semi-trucks at once, costs somewhere between $150 million and $400 million to build from the ground up. And that is before the sound system, before the rigging, before the first bar stool arrives. A larger arena, the kind that hosts the biggest touring acts on Earth, can run north of $1 billion before a single ticket is sold. Here is where the math gets uncomfortable. Many of these buildings are funded substantially by taxpayers. The city wants the jobs, the prestige, the restaurant traffic on show nights. So they hand over land, tax breaks, and direct construction subsidies, sometimes covering 40 to 60% of the total cost, while the private operator collects most of the revenue once the doors open. A 2022 study of publicly funded arenas found that the promised economic spillover almost never materializes. Money spent inside the venue is money not spent at the restaurant down the street. It does not multiply, it just moves. Now here's the part that should make you pause before you ever sign a lease. The moment you open a concert venue, someone is already waiting to sell your tickets for you, and you do not really have a choice about it. One company, Ticketmaster, controls roughly 70% of the primary ticketing market in North America. It locks venues into multi-year exclusive contracts by offering something no independent ticketing company can match: a per-ticket rebate paid directly back to the venue. It sounds generous. They sell the ticket, they charge the fees, and they hand you $2 or $3 or $5 per ticket just for letting them be the middleman. But here is what that rebate actually buys them. It buys the right to set the fees you have no control over, to own the customer data you never get to see, and to make sure that even when fans blame you for the $48 service charge on a $49 ticket, you are the one standing in the lobby taking the heat while they quietly process the payment from an office building in Beverly Hills. Let us break down the fees, because the fees are where the real money hides, and they are designed to be confusing on purpose. When you buy a ticket through Ticketmaster, you typically see 3 separate charges stacked on top of the face value: a service fee, a facility fee, and sometimes a convenience fee or an order processing fee, depending on how many clicks it took you to get there. 3 different names, 3 different line items, and almost all of them flow back to the same parent company, Live Nation Entertainment, which also happens to own Ticketmaster, and also happens to own or control over 300 venues worldwide, and also happens to manage the careers of hundreds of artists whose tours you are trying to book. The fees alone can add 25 to 40% on top of the ticket price, and here is the uncomfortable detail. The venue itself typically keeps none of the service fee. That fee goes to the ticketing company. The facility fee sometimes goes to the venue to cover maintenance, but the dirty secret is that even the facility fee is often shared with the promoter. The consumer sees 3 charges and assumes the venue is getting rich. The venue looks at the same receipt and wonders where all the money went. Let us do the math on a single person walking through your doors, because that math is grim, and it is the whole reason this business is harder than it looks. A fan buys a ticket with a face value of $75. Sounds reasonable. The ticketing company takes roughly $15 to $20 in combined fees, most of which it keeps. The artist's contract guarantees them a minimum of 85% of the face value after certain deductions, a standard clause in major touring contracts, so another $60+ walks out the door before you touch it. You are now left with something like $10 to $15 from a ticket that cost the fan over $90. That is your entire ticket margin. Everything else you make that night has to come from somewhere else. Parking, concessions, merchandise cuts, premium seat upgrades. The ticket itself is almost a loss leader, a cover charge that gets the customer into the room so you can try to sell them everything else before they leave. The artist contract is the most important negotiation you will have, and it is also the one where you have the least leverage if you are a single independent venue. Major touring acts work with guarantees. The promoter, which might be you or might be Live Nation, and increasingly it is Live Nation, guarantees the artist a fixed dollar amount regardless of how many tickets sell. A mid-tier act playing theaters might command a guarantee of $50,000 to $100,000 per night. An arena-level act can ask for $1 million or more. If the show sells out, everyone makes money, and the artist typically takes the lion's share of the overage beyond the guarantee. If the show does not sell out, the promoter still owes the full guarantee. The artist walks away whole. You eat the loss. This is why independent venues live or die on their booking instincts. One wrong guess about which band is about to break out, one tour booked 6 months too early before the album catches fire, and a single half-empty night can wipe out the profit from 3 sold-out ones. Here is the part that feels like a magic trick performed at your expense. After a show sells out, thousands of tickets reappear for sale on secondary platforms like StubHub and SeatGeek and, increasingly, Ticketmaster's own resale marketplace. The same seat you already sold once now gets sold a second time, often at double or triple the original price, and the platform collects a fee on both transactions: the original sale, the resale, sometimes a third fee when the resold ticket gets transferred. In 2024 alone, the secondary ticketing market in the United States was worth over $10 billion. The venue that originally sold the seat receives exactly $0 from any of those resale transactions. The artist gets nothing either, unless they have specifically negotiated a cut of resale revenue in their contract, which almost no one had until very recently. The entire secondary economy is built on the spread between what you thought the ticket was worth and what someone else is willing to pay, and none of that spread ever returns to the building where the show actually happens. Now layer on top of that the algorithm, because the algorithm has quietly become the most profitable character in this entire story. Dynamic pricing, what Ticketmaster calls platinum tickets, adjusts the price of certain seats in real time based on demand, the same way airline seats get more expensive as the plane fills up. There is no fixed face value. The price is whatever the market will bear at the moment you click buy. When Bruce Springsteen toured in 2023, dynamic pricing pushed some seats past $5,000 each, and the backlash was loud enough to make national news. But here is the detail most of the outrage missed. Springsteen's team had explicitly approved the use of dynamic pricing. The algorithm is not some rogue computer making decisions behind everyone's back. It is a tool approved by the artist, operated by the ticketing company, and profiting everyone except the fan who just wanted to hear a song they have loved for 40 years. The venue is a bystander in this transaction. The algorithm does not ask the building owner what the seat is worth. It asks the market, and the market, in a surge of post-pandemic demand, keeps answering with numbers that make everyone uncomfortable. So if the ticket revenue leaks out through artist guarantees and ticketing fees and resale platforms, where does the venue actually make money? The answer is so unglamorous, it is almost beautiful. Sponsorships, naming rights, pouring rights, premium seating licenses. These are the line items that quietly fund the entire operation while the audience stares at the stage. A major arena can command $10 to $20 million a year just for putting a corporate logo above the entrance. Pouring rights, the exclusive contract that says every beer and soda sold in the building comes from one specific company, can be worth several million more annually. Luxury suites and premium seat licenses, sold years in advance to corporations that use them to impress clients, can generate tens of millions in upfront cash before a single act is booked. None of this revenue depends on who is on stage that night. None of it gets split with an artist. It is recurring, contractual, invisible to the fan, and utterly essential to staying solvent. The concert is the show. The sponsorship contract is the business. The most successful venue owners understand something that takes years to become obvious. The building where the music happens is not really the asset, it is the anchor. The real asset is everything around it. Live Nation does not just operate venues. It operates the restaurants, the parking structures, the adjacent plazas, the hotels that fill up on show nights, the entire walkable district that springs up around a building that draws 15,000 people 100 nights a year. Around one arena in the American Midwest, developers built a 30-acre neighborhood of apartments, offices, shops, and restaurants entirely around the venue. The venue itself might break even or run a small operating loss in a slow year. But the property around it generates rental income that has nothing to do with who is on stage, nothing to do with dynamic pricing or artist guarantees, and everything to do with the simple fact that a steady stream of human beings willing to pay $18 for a beer will reliably walk past your storefronts. The music is the magnet, the real estate is the money. Let us talk about what happens when one company owns the venue, the ticketing platform, the artist management division, and the promotion arm all at the same time. Live Nation Entertainment controls over 300 venues globally. Ticketmaster, a management division representing hundreds of artists, and a promotion business that books thousands of shows a year. When an independent venue tries to book a major touring act, the promoter, who works for Live Nation, can simply route the tour through a Live Nation-owned venue instead. No threats, no explicit retaliation, just a routing decision that happens to keep the money inside the family. In April 2026, a federal jury found Live Nation and Ticketmaster liable on state antitrust claims, concluding that the company had illegally used its monopoly power to pressure venues into using Ticketmaster. The company reported $23 billion in revenue that same year. Being found liable for antitrust violations is expensive, but apparently less expensive than competing fairly would have been. Nothing reveals the fragility of this business like a forced shutdown, and in March of 2020, the entire live music industry went silent overnight. Every tour canceled, every venue empty, every fixed cost, the mortgage on the building, the long-term sponsorship contracts that still had to be serviced, the staff you furloughed but still owed benefits to, kept accruing without a single ticket sold. Live Nation's revenue fell by 84% in 2020. Independent venues fared far worse. A survey by the National Independent Venue Association found that 90% of independent venue owners predicted they would close permanently within 6 months without federal assistance, and thousands of them did. The structural lesson is not about a virus, it is about leverage. When your entire business model depends on filling a room with people, and someone else controls whether the artists come to your room or the one down the street, and a third party controls whether fans can even buy a ticket to your room, you do not own a business. You own a permission slip, and the permission can be revoked by forces you never see coming. Let us close the books on one sold-out night in a mid-sized venue, 5,000 seats, average ticket face value of $80. A reasonably famous artist on a Saturday in October. Gross ticket revenue at face value, $400,000. Immediately, the ticketing company takes roughly $70,000 in combined fees, nearly all of which it keeps. The artist guarantee is $250,000, representing 85% of the net after certain deductions, plus the artist's share of merchandise sales and a hospitality rider that covers catering and transportation. You are now left with something close to $80,000 before you pay a single bill. Out of that, you cover security, ushers, stagehands, insurance, utilities, building maintenance, and the debt service on the construction loan you took out to build the place. On a good night, you clear maybe $15,000 or $20,000 in actual profit. On a bad night, when the show undersells or the artist cancels or the weather keeps the walk-up crowd at home, you lose money. At scale, over 200 show nights a year, with sponsorship revenue filling the gaps, the math can work, but it works on thin margins. In an industry where almost every other party, the ticketing company, the artist, the secondary market, gets paid before you do. The economics of owning a concert hall is not really about owning a building where music happens. It is about surviving the math long enough to collect the invisible revenue streams that have nothing to do with the show.